All right, Bears fans, we have some news here on a Friday morning. Was about to go to work, drive to the office, get ready for my day, but want to get this news out quickly since the Bears do practice at 10 a.m. Central Time this morning. Chicago has signed 2 players and cut 2 players, signing cornerback Devontae Harris, defensive lineman Trevon Coley, both of who worked out yesterday. Full details on the signings, what they could bring to the table, kind of what they've done in the past. Plus, we'll let you know of 2 players that the Bears have cut as well. But this is why you subscribe to the channel, because whether we're at home or at the studios, we're going to bring you the latest Bears news and rumors. Reason I wanted to film this right away at home is, first, I want to give you guys breaking news whenever we get it. And secondly, I'll probably have a second video later today, sometime this afternoon, once practice settles and players and coaches talk to the media. So stay tuned for that, subscribe, and turn on your notifications. That way you know exactly when we publish new videos. So let's get to the signings, then we'll talk about the players they cut as well. Again, cornerback Devontae Harris and defensive lineman Trevon Coley. This was a part of 5 players that worked out during yesterday's off day. Cornerback Vernon Hargreaves and Isaiah Johnson also worked out, as well as defensive lineman Josh Morrow, but they opted to go with Coley and Harris here. Let's talk about Devontae Harris first, because they worked out 3 cornerbacks, and I find this interesting because, number one, he's got experience. He's been on rosters in the NFL for a couple of years. 27 years old. He's played in 36 NFL games with 9 starts over 4 seasons. Bengals back in 2018, as he was a 5th-round pick there. Denver for a couple of years in 2019 and 20. The Ravens in 2020. And then played in 6 games last year, split between San Francisco and the LA Chargers. Most of his work in his career has been on special teams, but he does have 4 pass breakups in his career at 5'11", 200, has some decent size there, can play some outside corner. Could that be relevant with this signing? We'll explore that in just a moment as well. So you've got that going on. And the reason I want to talk with corners, because there's been this shuffling at camp where Jalen Johnson is a clear outside corner, your CB1 on the outside. I think we know that. But we keep seeing Kyler Gordon getting reps at nickel, and I don't think that's going to change. And I think they want some depth at outside corner, because after Kendall Vilder, you don't really have any natural outside corners, at least with experience. I think Thomas Graham could do it, but they had been working him out at nickel, and now he's obviously been dealing with a hamstring injury. Tavon Young is strictly a nickel in the NFL. He does not have the size to play outside. Duke Shelley's way more of a nickel than an outside guy. So that kind of leaves you with not a ton of options. Sure, there's deeper guys on the roster like Lamar Jackson, not the Ravens quarterback, former Nebraska corner Lamar Jackson, but he's never played in the NFL. So, you know, I think a guy like Harris here could battle for a roster spot, give you some size and some depth, while also contributing on special teams. So I think that is interesting. And then the signing of Trevon Coley, you know, you look at his size, 6'1", 310 pounds, pretty good size, kind of a bowling ball. He's played in 44 games, 28 years old, 31 starts over 4 seasons with the Browns, Colts, and Cardinals. 100 tackles, 14 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks. I almost view this one as a more significant one, because the interior of the defensive line in Chicago has been, you know, a question mark, right? I think Justin Jones they feel pretty good about overall. You know, Kyrus Tonga is going to make the roster, likely with Angelo Blackson and Mario Edwards, who can play inside and out. But after that, there's definitely question marks as a whole. This is a guy that can come in here and be a rotation defensive lineman. We haven't heard hardly anything from Mike Pennell during camp. Could this be an upgrade from Pennell? Potentially, that's possible. Now, he didn't play last year in 2021. His last season was in 2020 with Arizona. 6 games, had 1 sack, 14 tackles. So a lot of his production came earlier in his career in 2017 and 2018. He's been a little bit banged up. He's been in and out of football. So we'll see if he can ramp back up to a fairly consistent level. But I think these are a couple of signings that may not move the needle a ton, but could fight for some roster spots. And I think that's notable as we continue to progress throughout training camp. So I want to ask you guys this question before we break this down a little bit further. Be honest, have you ever heard of Devontae Harris or Trevon Coley? Type Y for yes, type in for no. Have you ever heard of these two players? I want to hear you guys weigh in the comments section, and just be honest with me. Have you heard of the two players, Trevon Harris and Devonta Harris, of which the Bears just signed? Now, with two signings, two players got to be cut, as we see teams across the league shuffle their 90-man rosters. I'm probably going to mispronounce this, but I'm going to do my best here. Auzoyah Alufohai, defensive lineman, and S Jon Alexander were the two players that were released by the Bears. Alufohai, a defensive tackle. S Jon Alexander, a safety. Not really a surprise on either. Hadn't really heard either of those names much at camp. And plus, with how good the safety play has been, Alexander just buried on the depth chart behind, Jaquan Brisker, Eddie Jackson, Elijah Hicks has done some good things. We know DeAndre Houston Carson's going to be on the roster. Even, Dan Cruikshank's been a little banged up, but he's certainly ahead of Alexander. So he was on just a fringe 90-man player anyway, so he gets cut along with Alufohai. But you bring in two guys that may not have a massive impact, but at least guys that can probably bring a little bit more competitive juice. They've played a combined, like I said, 44 games for Coley and 44 games for Coley and 36 games for Harris. So that's 80 NFL games of experience. That's notable for a young team like Chicago. So you bring both of these guys in here who are experienced, who can be competitive, hopefully offer some special teams assistance, especially in Harris's case. And for Coley, a guy that if he can be healthy, can be a rotation guy on your defensive line. A little more background for these guys. Coley played his college ball at Florida Atlantic, 2016 undrafted free agent, signed with Baltimore, was cut during the final cuts, and then spent some time on Washington's practice squad, but then he landed with the Browns and was able to start 29 games over 2 seasons. So that's pretty impressive before having some injuries, including last year. He was on the Titans, but spent all year on IR. So he, since 2017, has been a guy that has been firmly on 53-man rosters prior to last season with the injury. Devontae Harris, remember, 5'11", 200 defensive back. 5th-round pick out of Cincinnati, or for the Cincinnati Bengals out of Illinois State. So they identified him. By the way, Illinois State, local connection, possibly here as well, as Ryan Poles signs him up also. So a little more bio on these guys. Harris, 27 years old, Coley, 28. So while they're vets, they're not exactly old players either, so we'll see how much juice they have left in the tank. When I saw the workout list yesterday, I was a little intrigued by the name Vernon Hargreaves, who's a former high draft pick, of course, but hasn't really been able to put it all together in the NFL. Just pulling up his bio real quick, as he's bounced around the NFL last year, played in 12 games with both the Bengals and the Texans, but kind of been in and out of the league, has done some good things at times, but has never really been able to put it all together after being a first-round pick for Tampa Bay back in 2016. I wondered if the Bears would sign him, but they opted to go with Harris, who probably has more versatility with that special teams experience that I was talking about earlier. So there you have it. Couple of signings, couple of cuts as we enter today's practice, which is going to get started. It's 9:15 as I'm about to wrap this video up, so 45 minutes from now we'll have this video out. Probably about 9:30 is when you will get the YouTube notification on your phone or device, or if you're watching a computer, wherever. So please subscribe to the channel, because we're going to continue to bring you the latest Bears breaking news, the hot rumors that are circulating, the daily shows we continue to bring on a daily basis, sometimes multiple times per day, as I stumble over my words. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Like I said, if you sub, that's dope, because we're almost at 50,000 subscribers. We're getting very, very close to that number, 49,300 and change. Would love to eclipse that number well before week 1. Hell, if we could get there before the first preseason game, that would be incredible. Got about 8 days to do that. It's back, man. Football is back for the Chicago Bears. Bears. We saw the Hall of Fame game last night. Of course, there was a weather delay. It's like, give us football. But got to see some guys run around, and we'll get to see the Bears do that in just over a week from now. All right, I'm your host, Harrison Graham. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Hopefully, this news alert was informative and entertaining. And like I said, we will have another video most likely later on today. All right, you can follow me on social media, Twitter and Instagram at HGramNFL. Until later, we will see you soon here on Chicago Bears Now.